I was sitting at my desk one afternoon, staring at a job application I'd spent hours on. Not skimming, staring. You know that feeling when you've gone over something so many times that you're just scanning for flaws? The cursor was blinking, the room was quiet, and I remember realizing I was actually holding my breath, my hand just hovering over the trackpad. The experience was right, the resume was right, and the story made sense. And then I reached that final section, just a few check boxes. And that one question that for some people changes everything. Will you, now or in the future, require sponsorship? And I just sat there. Because clicking yes doesn't really feel neutral. It's almost as if you're introducing doubts in their mind even before they've read your name. But I clicked yes. The screen doesn't say rejected. It doesn't say no. But in that moment, something shifts. It shifts from welcome to we'll see. The strange part is that I hadn't even applied yet. No one has read my name. No one knew of my skills. But I already knew how this often goes. I'm an international student. Most of us are here on something called the F-1 visa, which to most people means someone who's here from someplace else to study. And that's usually where the understanding stops. You'll often hear international students described as guests, and I understand what people mean by that. It sounds polite. But guests makes it sound light, temporary, easy, as if we arrived lightly, as if we could leave just as easily. But what the word fails to capture is pressure. The pressure to adapt quickly, the pressure to perform consistently, and the pressure to never fall too far behind. Because for us, failure isn't just academic. A bad semester isn't a setback. Sometimes it's the difference between staying and packing your life back into the same 2 suitcases you arrived with. That pressure doesn't come from entitlement. It comes from knowing that your place here is conditional and that the clock is always running. Here's the part that most people don't know. When international students are accepted into US universities, we're not just invited to sit in classrooms. We're invited to complete an education. That's why the F-1 system includes something called the Optional Practical Training, or OPT. A lot of people hear that and assume it's immigration. It's not. It's not sponsorship, and it's not a request to stay forever. It's a short, defined period after graduation where students are allowed and expected to apply what they've learned. For STEM programs, there's even an extension, 2 whole years, because these are the fields that the country says it needs. In most cases, it requires very little from employers, often just acknowledgement. That's the promise built into the system. You're allowed to learn, and then you're allowed to apply what you've learned. But somewhere between the university and the workforce, that promise starts to fade. The visa makes people nervous. The checkbox makes people hesitate. And so students who've earned US degrees, who are legally allowed to work, are filtered out before they're understood. And then something more subtle happens. We start doubting ourselves. We hesitate before applying. We don't knock on doors that we assume are already closed. There have been times when I've literally closed the tab, even before hitting submit. Not because I wasn't capable, not because I wasn't qualified, but because I thought the answer was already decided. That kind of silence is hard to measure, but it's real. And the ceiling we hit isn't personal, it's systemic. This isn't a student issue, it's a follow-through issue. The US educates global talent in American classrooms, with American values, solving American problems. And then often asks that talent to leave, just as it's ready to contribute. International students contribute more than $42 billion to the US economy every year. But the number that startles me isn't the money. It's another statistic in a report by InterStride that said, for every 10 international students, only 4 secure employment after graduation. That's a crazy statistic to me. It's 4 in 10. So when students are stopped before finishing their training, the loss doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up quietly. In research that slows, in innovation that moves elsewhere, in potential that never gets tested. So maybe we need a different metaphor. What if the American dream wasn't a gated community where access depends on what you already have? What if it was a construction site where anyone willing to pick up a hammer is invited to help build? International students aren't asking to skip the process. We're asking to complete it. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking to be evaluated the same way everyone else is. Look at our work. Look at our preparation. And then decide. If we were invited to learn, we should be allowed to apply what we've learned without a checkbox deciding even before a conversation begins. I still see that checkbox. But instead of a wall, I like to see it as a door. One that sometimes closes quietly. Not because someone wasn't capable, but because they weren't understood. And I'm still here, still building. And today, I'm choosing to hold that door open, not just for international students, but for anyone who's ever wondered if they'd be evaluated before they were heard. And when we widen that doorway, even a little, we don't lose anything. We gain ideas, we gain momentum, we gain each other. And that feels like a dream worth finishing.